Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Toilets and Titles. My name is Justin Stevens, and I got promoted up to the big chair today. This feels kind of weird. Like I'm a bigger guy than Coach, so I kind of thought that this chair would be a little more snug, but he sits in a bigger chair than it looks from the other side. So Coach is on vacation this week. He's a very much well deserved vacation with the family out in Disneyland. I believe it's Disneyland. That's the one in LA, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so to fill my spot, since I'm filling in John's spot, we brought in the big dog. We brought in the big guns. He was one of the first choices I had when I started making calls, and I didn't have to go too far. But we were able to get downtown Nino Brown. What's happening tonight, buddy?
Dude, I'm excited, gassed up to be as you would say, promoted to the big leagues. I got activated off the practice squad for tonight. I'm like Marlon Mack. I'm ready to go. Just give me the ball.
There you go, Marlon Mack. And speaking of which, he got promoted up to the active squad for the 49ers today. And you know how I know that? I know that because I follow the Twitter handle at Toilets and Titles, and our boy Nino is the guy that updates our Twitter handle about 74 times a day, it seems like. So great job there, Nino. I had no idea until I saw that. Just like a lot of the news, like you're breaking this stuff before the big leagues are breaking it. So you're doing a great job over there, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's hard to keep the battery charged on the phone, but we get it done.
Right on, right on. Absolutely. All right. So today it's going to be just like our normal show. We're going to do our rundown. We brought Nino in to fill in for the dudes and duds because I don't read too well, and that's always a really big part of it. If you would, though, please, like I said, I already brought up the Twitter handle at Toilets and Titles. Go check that out. Also check out at Coach Sheps, myself at JustinFF_. You see it down there at the bottom with our boy at Nino Brown _T2T. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, follow us on Apple Podcast, and just about anywhere else, Spotify, any platform. Just type in Toilets and Titles in the search bar, and you'd be shocked that nobody else had that name anywhere else on any other platform. And we've done we've been able to accomplish what we want and get our name out there for sure. So we've started up a little bit of a kind of a new thing here, a new segment here that I'm kind of throwing us off and going out of order because I forgot to put it on the template A. So I'm kind of throwing you off right out the gate, Nino. But we're going to talk a little bit about the Frankenstank League. The Frankenstank is our listener league, the big, huge monster of a league that has 60 people in the league right now. It's a 5-copy league. A lot of crazy rules, stealing vampire style, along with cards like these special bonus playing cards here. That the Leprechaun and Pennywise card, the Werewolf. So we got all these special crazy cards that the people can play that they get bonuses. Anyway, you made a nice graphic for that as well today, and we're going to talk a little bit about our top 5 scoring teams. I do remember that Coach Sheps was the number 1 scoring guy this week. And the reason I remember that is because last week I actually had a good week. And we didn't have this awesome graphic. I didn't get my awesome monster, which is the Phantom, on there. And then suddenly Coach comes out of nowhere. He gets the top score for the week. And now we have a graphic. So I see where I'm at on that pecking order. I see why I'm typically normally in that second chair. But
hold on. I was approached and I was told that it would be good for the fans, for the listeners, for the Frankenstein members. So, you put it that way. How could I say no?
No, I know. I'm not blaming. I'm glad you did it. I think it's an incredible graphic. It looks amazing. As a matter of fact, you know what? I can share my team, but do you happen to have it pulled up right now?
I don't, but I could. Hold on one
Yeah.
second.
So the top 5 teams this week in Frankenstein, we got obviously was Coach Sheps, and I'm going to try to pull it up here so that I can also show it.
Trouble. You got it?
Do you see it?
You got to share it. Add to the stream. Boom.
Oh, down at the bottom. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. There we go.
All right. So we've got Coach Sheps here. Again, I should have had that ready, but I totally forgot that we're going to do this. But
We're on the fly here. That's what we do. Improvise.
right, right. Second place, Alex, the abominable snow person, 391 points. I'm not really sure who these other
Fenner.
guys are.
So
What's that?
so third is Fenner, which is at Pope's FFH.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I met him at Canton. Good dude.
Yep.
Good dude.
And then fourth place is my guy. He's become a good buddy of mine. I met him through the Angry Blue Bird here, but he's been a good friend of mine. Be Chris Hine. He's Mumra St. Brown. And then last place is our own. I'm not say last place, but number 5 is our own Dirty Jobs Mike, 339 with Pennywise.
Yeah. Good for him. Great job this week in a 60-man league. He gets the 5th high score against me. And he ends up stealing my Cooper Cup. So yeah, great job, Mike.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a tough fit, man. That's a tough fit, especially in Frankenstank, man. Frankenstank, like he scored me like 80 points or something like that. So he's an incredible player for sure. Hey, what's up, George?
Georgie.
All right. I think we spent enough time about that, but the Frankensteak League is a really fun league, and we're going to try to update everybody every week on that, kind of the top 5 scores and maybe some surprises or anything crazy that might happen.
Ready?
But,
so real quick, if you're not a T2 team member and you're on that top 5 list, I'm going to send you guys out a little, no shirts because they're on the order, but get a little merch package. I got some stickers, some keychains, and some magnets. I'm going to put you up something good, and I'll just DM you for your address. And we'll send it out to you.
Look at that. DM him. Get that merch. Look at that. All right. Next, we're going to bring up the weekly show for the in-season weekly show. We're only on week 3, so some of you may not realize all the shows we have out there, and it is now 10 shows because we just saw my boy George there. Yeah, I call him Boy George sometimes. Why not? My boy George, he popped into the comments down there at the bottom. He and I are actually starting a Friday night show. This is a show that's been a huge need for some time. George has some connections where we're going to try to get on some experts in the field of physical therapy and medicine and that sort of stuff to try to talk about injury updates for players and kind of what the injuries mean to the players so that we have situations like this Dalton Schultz injury that we're going to be talking about in a moment where everybody thinks the worst, and then Jerry Jones comes out and underplays it and says something like, well, the biggest question right now is if he's going to play this week or not. Like, come on, Jerry. But we could get guys on that actually know what they're talking about. And then if we can't find guys to come on to talk about these injuries that actually know what they're talking about, then guess what? You still get Dr. George and Nurse Justin to talk to you about what we think we know. And we know just enough to get you in trouble. But it's going to be a fun show. It's going to be a relaxed show. If you put me and George together, it's not going to be too serious at all, ever. So I'm really looking forward to that on Friday nights. Anyway, I had to throw that out there to kind of introduce the show just a little bit. So
it's like Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire on Friday nights now, huh? We're gonna have TGIF and P2P, man. We're just gonna be knocking them out the park.
P2P would be our NCAA and Debbie talk. So George and I are coming on at 7. It's gonna be a quick 45-minute episode at most, and then following that at 8:30, Nino and Jared. That's right, this guy Nino and Jared. They talk NCAA and Debbie talk, and I know I'm going a little bit out of order, so I'll get back in order here. But Monday nights is for our Patreons only, guys. Joe Clark is putting in some work for the Patreons on Monday nights for the waiver wire. Just to give you an idea, last week's episode he brought to you for this week Curtis Samuel, Corey Davis, Greg Dortch, Josh Palmer, your boy, Nino. You told me that at the start of the show, or before we started the show. Josh Palmer's your boy. Ashton Doolin, Tyler Higbee, and 3 IDP guys that also blew it out of the water this week, all on the week 1 waiver wire episode for week 2. And they all hit this week. Guys, I'm telling you, if you're not a Patreon, hit that up. In fact, Nino, go ahead and pull up that banner if you haven't already. That's patreon.com/toilets-titles. And we have 5 different levels here for you to choose from. The $3 Discord gets you into the $3 gets you into the Discord chat with all the TDT members and all the other Patreons. The $5 level gets you that waiver wire episode every Monday that I was just telling you about. the $7.50 level, one-on-one draft advice, which you probably not getting a whole lot of that right now, but you know what? If you need DFS advice, we could probably throw that in there as well. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make that call right now. We're throwing in DFS lineup suggestions, which all you'd have to do just DM any one of us on the team, and you'll know who we are in the Discord chat. Obviously, figure out which one you want. We'll give you some DFS advice for that $7.50 a month level. For the $10 a month level, you get a entry into the Frankenstein League. And I don't just mean an entry, I mean a free entry into the Frankenstein League. At the $5 level with the waiver wire episode, you also get an invite, but you got to pay for the Frankenstein. But at $10, you get in for free for the Frankenstein. The $20 level, that's personal one-on-one roster analysis. We'll also give you a 30-minute episode of your team breakdown after your draft. Since that's over, we probably need to think of something else to add in there too. Trust me, we'll be on it. That's patreon.com/toilisted The other shows through the week, right here, Tuesday nights, you're on the flagship show right now with myself and Nino, normally myself and John. And again, we are immediately followed by none other than Nino and Jared again with their H to H. That's the IDP show, guys. For those of you that play IDP football, Nino, just go ahead and talk yourselves up a little bit and go ahead and mention something about your boy Russ.
Buddy. He's the glue that keeps it all together. Cluster Rush 73 on Twitter. Listen, right now what we're doing for the whole season is 5 up, 5 down. We're giving you 5 rises, 5 falls, 5 guys that each week that either you can plug in and play, or maybe it was a guy that hit and nobody's on him. You can go scoop him off the wire, which we're throwing to Joe. So Joe will be putting them out to you as well. And then, those stink bombs. Get rid of them stink bombs. Put them guys on your bench. We break down. Jared's big on strength of schedule. So it is all little intricate things that we do when we get our rankings from 5 up, 5 down. So we're not just, pulling them out the sky. We're actually giving you some in-depth analysis.
And, Jared also has strength of schedule stuff on the website, toilistedtitles.com. So make sure you go check that out. I utilized it for my redrafts at the start of the season. I've totally forgotten about it. So I'm glad you brought it up. I'm going to go back and look at it when I'm doing my streaming, my streaming from week to week on defenses, especially. You look at that strength of schedule. I mean, I'm sure some of it's changed now because teams change or whatever, but I'm telling you, man, that was a huge help. So that's toilistedtitles.com. Then on Wednesday mornings, our time, because it's our Down Under Dynasty show, it's Ben and Matt talking Dynasty. Guys, if you're not up at 6:30 in the morning or able to watch at 6:30 in the morning, it stays on there. Go back and watch it Wednesday nights when you get home, on your way home from work, lunch break, whatever. Down Under Dynasty with Ben and Matt. And then on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m., you got Joe Knows, where he's talking NFL show. It's a total NFL discussion. It's not necessarily fantasy based. It's just whatever Joe wants to talk about that week. Typically, I think it's more of a preview and review show. And he now has a new co-host, Andrew Steele, one of our new guys to T2T. And then immediately after that, 10:30 p.m., D2D, the gambling show with Nate, Rich, and Abe. Friday nights, we've already discussed. Saturday nights, at 9 p.m., we've got a dash of DFS, which is, from what I can tell, it's mainly been Mike and Joe Arachi this season. And then Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m., the Blitz. Guys, the Blitz is off the chain. The Blitz is start, sit advice for your weekly schedule coming up that day. Mike, George, Jason, Alex, and Joe Arachi will sit down. They'll go over all of your dilemmas, and they'll help you set your lineup for you. And those guys are amazing. They do a great job. All right, Nino, I need a little bit of a breath. Do you mind reading that 5-star review from SKG Job GGSC? And yes, I said that all correct. I don't know why his name is that way on Apple.
It's a lovely name, but the review is even better. Keep doing a great job with the injury and studs and duds segments, keeping the world aware with some funny and good content. We appreciate you, SKG Job GGSC, and we appreciate anybody out there listening. If you could drop a 5-star Apple review, listen, if I could find that gentleman's name, I will send him out a care package as well.
Yeah, right on. Hey, if you're listening, if you just heard that, if you're listening, I mean, he's like Santa Claus. He's just giving stuff away right and left. All right, before I get into the injuries, I do want to touch bases a little bit here with the the Buccaneers' new signing, Cole Beasley. They signed Cole Beasley to their practice squad. You got Godwin is injured. The Mike Evans suspension. Beasley's on the practice squad for now. I don't think it'll be too long. They'll be activating him if they didn't already. So, what do you think about that one?
All right, so you let the little blue bird take you down a rabbit hole, and they'll tell you that he's going to be Julian Edelman all of a sudden, which I don't think so. But last year he had 100 and I believe 60 plus targets in Buffalo. And Emmanuel Sanders had 140. So like he's good for 100 targets. They're slim. Everybody's hurt. Julio's got the knee and the hamstrings attached to the knee, and you all know how I feel about Julio's hamstring. So that's a big thumbs down. You got Godwin hurt. Perriman has been a surprise, but question with Perriman is his health as well. So it's like, is he going to be okay? You got a suspension for Evans. They needed help. They went out and got the best guy. What makes me think is what's wrong with Will Fuller? Because nobody wants him.
Yeah, no doubt. And I get he's injured all the time, but when he plays, he's insane. And
right.
I mean, had they already signed him ahead of all the injuries, Will Fuller, I mean, had they already signed the Bucks had already signed him ahead of with all these injuries out there already before this whole suspension thing, he'd probably be ready to go by this week, like unless he's not ready. Like maybe he just, I don't know. He's a professional athlete. I'm sure he was out there working somewhere. You know what I mean? He's got to be ready.
Yeah, I mean, Beasley's obviously ready. He drew multiple interests. I put it up on our Twitter that there was like 5 teams out there that were really interested in him. I really thought he was going back to Dallas. There was interest there. Jerry has always been a Cole guy. But I was also hoping for New England. But he landed in a prime spot. He'll probably get, I think he plays this week, to be totally honest with you, and he'll probably get 6 to 8 targets.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. So maybe DFS.
Oh, I mean, cheap. If you're looking for a guy like, flex play after you wanted to go big on some of the lineups and you want to go for like a $3,200 guy, Cole Beasley's probably a shot.
Have you showed any of these down at the bottom?
I said the big G over Boy George. I was putting up the banners. I was chuckling to myself. I had Steve up there saying that he's bugging us all the time.
Can they help my back? I'm wondering if that's Steve also.
It might be.
Poor old man. He's watching on Facebook and then switched over to YouTube. Maybe makes sense.
He went to the elite status.
Yeah, Steve, I don't know if you caught that, but we did say that he got signed off of the practice squad, so he's good to go now. So, also, Steve, look at that, $10 Patreon on. Nice, yeah, he does bug. He even asked me. He asked me a question like not even 20 minutes ago. He got on the phone with me and asked me some advice on some trade talk. So, yeah, I mean, we're available. Yeah,
all the time.
I'll do anything for $10 a month.
Whoa, hey now.
All right, the injury doc. So we're down to we only had really like 3 major injuries. We already talked about Mike Evans with the suspension. I don't know if you want to talk about the altercation itself or the suspension. So, I think it was pretty fair.
It's fair. There's history. I mean, it's happened before. I will say that Tom Brady better if he has to get suspended, Brady better pay for that suspension, that game check.
Oh yeah.
Because Brady was the guy yapping, talking with his mouth. You know what I mean? Exactly, and Evans stepped up for him. But, bro, Evans hit him with like an Ultimate Warrior type shove, dude. They threw him out the frame.
Yeah. And you all heard it. Those of you that listen every week, you guys listen to all the different shows, you know that I am a Tom Brady hater. It wasn't me that brought it up this time. I was waiting for it. So thank you, Nino. I appreciate that.
I had 20 years of it. I'm a fan still. And
yeah.
This is a different Brady for me. I've never seen him like this ever. Yeah. And I know people are going to say, like I said before, the family thing. I don't know if that's it. I think it's a culmination of everything hit the wall at once for him.
I mean, the dude is the luckiest man on earth that's always had everything go his way. Eventually, something bad's going to happen. And I mean, when a lot of bad stuff happen, I don't care who you are. It's going to affect you. Like,
how to stay focused.
He's still human. He's still human.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. And I still don't like him. But anyway, the 3 big injuries we have here, we've got the tight end Dalton Schultz. no surgery, but is expected to miss some time. They suspect it's a PCL sprain. Jerry Jones tried to downplay it. I already talked about that, but he pretty much just said it's just a matter of if he plays this week or not.
He said Dak is going to be back in 4 weeks too. So,
yeah, well, I mean, it's only been one, so who knows? Trey Lance out for the season. That is confirmed. The Pro Football Doc report. No fears for long-term impact. Similar to they said they're kind of relating it to the injury of Dak from last season, or was it 2 seasons ago?
Yeah,
from 2 seasons ago. And then James Conner left the game in the third quarter with an ankle injury. He didn't return, and I mean, I don't know. I watched the game. It doesn't look like it's anything like super serious, but even if it's like a high ankle sprain, there's a good chance he could miss a couple weeks anyhow. So definitely
he's injury prone. He is injury prone. But I did do a little searching on that. I seen that Joe threw that on the doc. Apparently he went to the blue tent. Everything was fine. He didn't even take off his jersey. He sat down on the sideline, fully padded up and everything. So I don't think it's an issue. We'll see Wednesday. Wednesday will be the true test, because if it was no issue at all, he'll play. He'll practice. If there's a slight issue, then you got to go get Mr. Nino. So
yeah. Let's see. I already went over the Patreon. I jumped into it early, so we're good there. We can move on. The game of the week. So here's how the game of the week works. Or for those of you that don't know, John and I choose a game of the week every week that we think is going to be the best game. We score points based off of the point differential. So the higher the point differential between the games, the more points you get. So the idea here is to have the fewest points overall on the season. Last week, I chose the Dolphins and the Ravens. That was a 1:00 game. The score was 42-38. And I figured it was going to be a close game. I thought it would be within a field goal, but I was not expecting, 80 points scored. I was not expecting 80 points total, but very fortunate that the Dolphins were able to make that comeback. Not so fortunate for my fantasy teams, because I went against a lot of Dolphins and I had the Ravens defense, because that was before I gave up on them, but I'll talk about that later. But anyway, only a 4-point differential. Coach had the Vikings at the Eagles on Monday night. That was 7-24. That was a 17-point differential. So that kind of helped me gain some points here. And I took the lead after 2 weeks. He had the lead after week 1. The punishment is that we're supposed to have a special name that the other guy gives us right here on the show. So last week, you guys know I was the puppet master, which actually wasn't really a punishment because I'm a big fan. But he called me that because of the strings I've been pulling in the Frankenstank and a lot of the work I've been doing on the league site for the Frankenstank. So this week, his punishment also is not really a punishment. I went ahead and sent him to Disney and let Nino take over for him. So I think it's even. That's pretty much about the same. Overall,
punish me like that, dude. Send me to Disney. Send me to the Senior Bowl. Send me wherever you want.
Dude, you don't do anything wrong. How can I punish you?
I try. I try to stay on the straight and narrow.
All right. The season totals, I'm at 25 points. John is at 33. So this week's game of the week, Nino, I'm going to let you say yours first since you're the guest. It's only right. So what do you got for the game of the week this week, and talk a little bit about it?
My game of the week is the 49ers at the Broncos. So it's been 2 weeks, and Russell Wilson has been rusty Russell Wilson, in my opinion.
Rusty Russ.
He hasn't. Maybe this is the reason why Seattle was quick to pull the trigger when he wanted out. I don't know. But I think he makes a bounce back. I think it's a good game. I know this is Dirty Jobs' team. I know he's a fan of the Broncos. My guy, Jimmy G, is now at the helm for the 49ers. Russ and Jimmy have had plenty of matchups. It's just going to be in a different city. I'm not a 49ers fan. My buddy Kyle is a huge Niners fan. Excuse me. I love Big Tufagana in the safety position for the 49ers. But I'm going to go with the 49ers in this game because, to me, Jimmy G brings a winning element to that team.
Yes.
You might even get Kittle back this week. And if Kittle's back with his guy, Jimmy G, you got the regular 49ers offense running. Debo's probably going to be back. I never understood the Trey Lance thing. I hope the kid gets healthy and does well. I don't know if he'll ever do well for the 49ers. I know it's hard to say. Jimmy G's that guy. He just gets it done. He's a winner. I think this game's going to be huge. And if the 49ers win this game, Denver better just hide because the fans are gonna kill them.
I mean, George down here is asking if Lance is a bust. I think it's too early to say if he's a bust or not, but he's definitely a bust for the 49ers, but you can't really blame that on an injury, you know. And I wasn't a Lance booster by any means, and that was proven last week. And I'm going to talk about that at the end of the show with our next week tonight's. But
thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree. He barely even played in college, too.
And that was my issue, that I
Yeah.
got ridiculed in my first episode with you guys, my very, very first episode before I was even part of Toads Titles. I was a guest on a mock draft, and I said something about Christian Watson being from a small school, and he wasn't the dude, and coach damn near decapitated me. He goes, "Oh, what about Trey Young?" I'm like, "Whoa, Trey Lance." I was like, "Oh, man, I said the wrong thing." All my boys back home know I've always said the 49ers wanted Mac Jones and got nervous because they gave up a whole farm, and they got nervous because they knew what he was. Everybody knew his ceiling and you knew his floor. You know what I mean? But they went for the Konami code guy who had played 3 games in his whole career, and now they might have put that franchise back.
We have similar stories, Nino. So a few years ago, before I became somebody with John with this whole Toilets and Titles thing, and I was just a listener of the show or whatever when he was doing his old show. He did a mock draft with George remembers. Did a mock draft with a lot of the guys that we do those mock drafts with, and John Lobb was on one, and I had drafted John Lobb is amazing. He is the man. You're right. Awesome. Awesome dude too. Not just great with football. It's just a great dude.
Yes.
And I drafted Tyler Boyd over AJ Green, and at that time they were giving me crap for it, like totally ripping me for it. As a matter of fact, John Lobb was very vocal, and he's already a vocal
oh yes,
and he got pretty loud too with his wow. It was a long like I will never forget it. So and of course that year Tyler Boyd outscored AJ Green by quite a bit. So hey, look at that, a 68-inch screen. Love it. Now before I get to my game of the week, I have to do something that I've been trying to do or been thinking to do for a while, and I keep forgetting. I keep putting it off. And that is tell you guys a little story about my mom and dad's trip down Route 66 this year. They drove down to Vegas to meet us when we went to Vegas. He stops at a restaurant, and he sees he's been wanting a bull's head of some kind, like a skeleton head, to put in his garage. My dad has for a long time. Sees one that he wants. He talks to the guy and he says, "Hey, how much for the bull's head?" The guy goes, "Well, let's go out there and look at it because I don't know which one you're talking about," because he had 2 out there. My dad points to one. He said, "I want that one. How much for it?" And he said, "Well, how much will you give me?" And my dad said, "Well, I don't know about that yet, but I will tell you that I want you to sign it and put the name of the restaurant on there if you sell it to me, because I want to be able to have the story to tell people." And the guy said, "I tell you what, if you put me on the internet and try to help make me viral, then I will let you have it for free." And the only thing my dad could think of was to promise the guy, before I even had a chance to talk to John about it, promise the guy that I would put it on our show. So here I am fulfilling a promise. Here is the bull's head.
Yes. Hey,
I've done my job, Dad. The name of the restaurant is Rooster's Mexican Restaurant in Vega, Texas. His name is Mike Ariano. That's the restaurant manager's name. Ask for Mike Ariano. Tell him that you saw him or you saw the bull's head on Toilets and Titles. And I don't know what's going to happen from there. The guy's probably going to say, like, what bullhead? And he's going to forget all about it. But that's Vega, Texas. So I've done my part. I love you, Dad. I'd do anything for you, and I just proved it. So now for my game of the week. I can finally get that thing out of my house and get it back to my dad's garage. So my wife's going to love that. All right. My game of the week, Pittsburgh at Cleveland. It's a divisional game. I think that Pittsburgh is a little down right now, especially with the injury to Watt. That defense does not look the same. I think that Cleveland has the quarterback that they need to win football games. I know it sounds crazy to say that, but he's a game manager. Jacoby Brissett keeps games close. He runs the ball a lot, which runs the clock down a lot, which keeps the games close. I think it's going to be a close, hard-fought battle, just like it always is between them. That's why I chose them as the game of the week. And that's on Thursday Night Football, too. So that means I don't have to wait all week with anticipation to find out that I did miserable. Coach is choosing the Packers at the Buccaneers. So so he's choosing the Battle of the Bays, really. He's got Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady at the 425 slot. Great game. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. Potential to be a high-scoring game, but we also thought that last week with the Buccaneers and the Saints. So who knows? What do you think of those?
Battle of 12s, man. That's going to be a great game. The Battle of the 12s, Brady and Rodgers. Yeah, I think he gets you. Only because I feel like that's a 3-point game.
That's fair. That game should come down to a field goal either way.
I don't know what you've been watching. I know he was on your team for a year or two. I watched him a lot longer than you watched him. He is like, I know there's Stop and Shop and Shores where I'm from, and then there's like Price Right. That's like the bottom, like market. He's the manager of Price Right. All right, that's where I have Jacoby Brissett. He don't even make Stop and Shop, Market Basket. He ain't even at that level.
Yeah, after that leg injury with the Colts, though, if you take out those losses after that leg injury, if you just take out those losses, he's got one of the highest winning percentages of any active quarterback in the NFL.
You ready for this? It's identical to Jimmy G, just doesn't have the playoff wins.
Exactly, because he's the same quarterback as Jimmy G.
They are a running team. They are a running team, right? That does not protect when they pass.
Right. I'm not saying he's a good quarterback.
No. So Pittsburgh, right? My thing with Pittsburgh is they lost TJ Watt. I get it. That is not going to happen. What happened last week with that defense being in shambles, that's not going to happen. There's too many leaders on that team. Too many. You got Highsmith, Minka Fitzpatrick. There's just too many strong leaders. They'll right the ship. It might not be against Cleveland, but what an offense to go against where you really don't have to be stellar.
Yeah, that's fair. You only need to be one-sided. Yeah. No,
and they beat Cincinnati. They beat Cincinnati already, right? Pittsburgh beat Mitchell Trubisky won. So I don't know. I just think in that game, who wins could be more than 10.
Didn't Burrow and Cincinnati start off pretty slow last season too? I feel like they did. I feel like they came out the gates kind of slow the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, they might have. They may have been 1-1 off the rip.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Right. I think you might lose a couple points there, but you still got room to make. You got some room to play, so you're all right.
Yeah, that's right. All right, the betting locks of the week. So John was unable to fill out his betting locks of the week this week. You get my betting locks of the week this week. So, here goes. The Bills are giving up 4.5 points to the Dolphins. They're only 4.5-point favors against the Dolphins, and the Dolphins have kind of proved why it's only 4.5 points. The Dolphins have been playing really good. I feel like the Bills will definitely cover this pretty easily, though. That defense is just too good. They're going to slow down that fast-paced offense of the Dolphins, and the Dolphins have been thriving on that fast pace. So that the more the game goes, the quicker they get. They're balling out. I have to admit to George that I was wrong about Tua. And maybe it's because of the schedule so far, and maybe it's because the Ravens aren't as good as we thought, but maybe the Ravens are still as good as we thought, and maybe we were just wrong about the Dolphins, and they embarrassed them a bit. And when I say embarrassed, I mean that comeback. And then the Bears are 3-point favorites against the Texans. I think that the Texans actually win this game outright, and that sounds insane to come out my mouth, but it's rare I'm going to get an opportunity to actually choose the Texans. So I would gladly take the points in this one, just because the Texans have been playing their games pretty close most of the game. They've been playing pretty well overall for how bad that they are. So they got a shot anyway. So you may as well take them while you got a shot. The Chiefs are 6.5-point favorites to my Colts. The Colts have played absolutely horribly this season. The one thing that I know as a Colts fan is that they always play to their opponent's level. When it's a big game against a big team, a good team, they play up and they play good. When it's the Jaguars, they play down and they lose to the freaking Jaguars every single week. It's insane to me. But I think
that's your win total.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that the Chiefs will easily cover this if Leonard and the wide receivers are their top two wide receivers are out again. But if those guys play, I think there's a good chance that the Colts will cover. So monitor the point spread. If those guys play, go ahead and take those points. Take the Colts. I believe they'll cover. Otherwise, they don't have a shot. Like it's going to be like 20 points again against the Chiefs if they don't play or more. Anything that you want to add to the betting locks?
All right, so I like your picks. I like the Bears more so, but I like your picks. I will give George's team some 3-day-old flowers. They're still alive, but I will say on Tua, George already knows I'm level-headed when it comes to I'm a Patriots fan, but I'm level-headed when it comes to stuff like this. He's looked good. He's looked very accurate. Outside of that first pass, that was like a ground ball that skidded off the grass week 1. The rest of the time, he looked very accurate. But I will say he's still been targeting from the middle to the left side, and he had a couple ugly passes where he tried to throw it across his body to the right. So he's looked good. And it's not he had a poop ton of air yards, so he's not just throwing 3-yard outs and these guys are taking it to the house. Him and what's his and Mike McDaniels, they're a team, man, and he vibes off them. So they got that offense rolling. Defense has been stellar. Obviously, they just gotta pick it up earlier. You know what I mean? They seem to turn the defense on later in the games and have to make comebacks. But I like it. I don't know what's up with your Colts. I'm really, really surprised. I mean, I never had them over 10 wins this year. I definitely had them looking better than this out the gate.
Yeah. And your boy Jared jumps in here and he talks about the DB crew for the Ravens are the worst. Absolutely right. And they suffered a big injury too, out for the season. That defensive back, what's his name? Do you remember who I'm talking
Peters?
about?
Not Marcus Peters.
No, before that.
I can't think of. Oh yes, Stephen Means is the linebacker that's out. I can't think of the cornerback that's out. But they're all old. All their guys are old, and Kyle Hamilton is getting exposed.
Yeah.
I thought it was a preseason thing. I thought it was a camp thing. I think it's going to take a year.
And then if you want, well, first off, Steve says he's putting the house on KC, and he's a fellow Colts fan. So if it's only 6.5, he's putting his house on KC. But then we get a back and forth between George and Jared in there. And I got to tell you, Jared, this nice tumbler right here was sent to me on my birthday by George. So I got to take George's side, unfortunately, but it's only because of the tumbler. Like other than that, I'm not ever gonna really speak too highly of the Dolphins.
I see him a lot, so it is what it is. They look good. This will be a test going. If they can, even if they lose this game to Miami, if they can keep it 7 or under, then they're legit. They're legit to me because that defense of Buffalo is insane. The way they rotate DNs and linebackers is outrageous. I've never seen a team do that. Like it's just everybody's fresh, everybody's high moded.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Turtleheads. Now he's laughing because I just explained to him what the Turtleheads mean before the show. So he didn't quite get it. So when you hear his Turtlehead, it'll make more sense if you know now that he didn't quite understand what a Turtlehead was until I kind of mentioned it to him before the show. So first off, if you're not watching on YouTube, if you're listening to this right now on Apple or Spotify or something, go back and watch YouTube. You can see this back and forth battle that Jared and George are having. It's a lot of fun. And I also want to remind you guys about last week. One of the Turtleheads I mentioned last week because it was a week early on purpose, and that's the Chargers defense. I said that if you have a deep bench, you have the space to hold a defense for a week. Get the Chargers against the Chiefs last week and put them on your bench because of their schedule that's about to pop up. And starting this week, it starts with the Jags. And after that, they have several weaker offenses. And those offenses are only looking weaker as the season's progressing. So this Chargers team defense, if you have a team defense league, is a team that you want to pick up right now because you should have picked them up last week. That, Nino, is the idea of the Turtleheads, to kind of think a little bit ahead of time or think maybe even this week, guys that other people aren't thinking of. So
So I have a dynasty turtlehead for you this time. Last week he was a waiver option and a guy that we were talking highly about for last week, and he ended up performing, and that's Joshua Palmer. And I'm making him my dynasty turtlehead because I feel like even though Keenan Allen may be coming back soon and he's going to be the third wide receiver for one, he still has value as the third wide receiver in that offense. But also moving forward, we don't know what the contracts look like. I mean, we know what they look like right now. Mike Williams and Keenan are both on the hook for 2 more seasons. But Keenan's 30 years old. You just never know in the NFL. They could get traded. They could retire. Whatever. They could move on. But even with them staying, I still believe that Palmer has great flex appeal in a lot of positions in that offense. So if Palmer is still available in your dynasty leagues, or not even available, he's probably taken because he was kind of highly touted coming out of college. But that luster on Palmer, for whatever reason, has slowly been fading. Now's the time to buy him low. He's about to pop. I got a good feeling about that. This week's Turtlehead, 19 targets, 14 touches for Jacoby Myers over the first 2 weeks. You got to pay attention to the trends. I keep saying it. The first 2 weeks, once is a fluke, twice is a trend. He faces the Ravens, who we just talked about. I'm not gonna exhaust that again. But after that, the other notable defenses moving forward: Detroit, Cleveland, Chicago, the Jets ×2, and that horrible Colts defense. Of are 7 of his next 8 games, guys. Jacoby Myers could be the real deal finally. Like we've been waiting on it. We waited on it coming out of college. We some of us anyway thought pretty highly of him, and he's on your team too. So what do you have to say about that one, Nino?
All right. So team touching cloth, Turtlehead, team Turtlehead. I'm actually gonna go away from your Myers pick. I think it's a solid pick, but for the guy on that team that I think is the Turtlehead is Nelson Aguilar. He literally put the top of the turd out last week. He showed you a little bit. He put a little stamp on the undies. He gave you 100 yards and a touchdown. They pay him too much money. Okay, he makes more money than Myers. I think he makes more money than Parker. He's their dude. They want him to succeed. They're going to use him. Finally, Bill decided to go watch some film when he did well. They're going to use him like they did that first year in Oakland, where he was a deep threat, and he's like the 4th option over there. So he's going to get the worst cornerback. He's going to get the linebacker coming out of the slot. I love it. I love Aguilar. He's my guy. Josh Palmer's, dude, you already know. I'm going to plug myself real quick. Dynasty Diamonds episode 22, Josh Palmer. I called it. I gave you the stats when Allen was out. He went 5 for 56 and a touchdown. When Williams was out, he went 5 for 65 and a touchdown. The dude performs. Unfortunately, Josh Heppel wasn't at Tennessee when he was, or else his numbers would have been through the roof. Palmer just got it's kind of more of like a victim of an offense that didn't know how to get out of its own way. And they didn't draft anybody this year to take over his role. They went out and got an older tight end in Gerald Everett and Isaiah Spiller. So there was nobody to take his job away. He's the guy of the future for them.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Absolutely. I mean, worth looking into. I mean, either one of them in redraft could very well be available for you.
You ready for this one? And I'm big on this guy. I've been big on this guy for a while. I would trade Kadarius Toney for Josh Palmer right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Wow. I could see that. Though. But I'm more interested in your Turtlehead. This is the guy that you think is about to break out.
Well, I was thinking Turtlehead was like terrible. I had Paris Campbell because he had all the opportunity in the world. Pittman out, Alex Pierce out. And he didn't even make it down the pipeline. He got sucked back in. The Colts rear end said, "You do not see the toilet bowl today, sir. You will go back in."
No, so what happened was you saw the show notes and you saw that you thought that I was picking on your boy Josh Palmer.
Yes.
And I was picking on your Patriots receiver, and you thought, you know what, I'm going to throw a Colts player back in his face. But instead what you did was you put him on the Turtlehead, so you think he's going to break out, and that's what I'm going with.
I got one for you, though, real quick on the fly, because this is how I operate. I have to, because Jared does this to me all the time. I'm going to go with my Turtlehead is Tyler Algier, because Damian Williams is hurt.
Okay.
You cannot rely on CP84 that workload forever. You know what I mean? He's a freak, but there's no way that dude can get 20 touches, carries, whatever it is, every single game. His body will break down. He's going to be the guy. Algier is young. He had a little bit of trouble in camp, but he's getting time now. He's going to be RB2 going into it. He's going to get the third down and the goal line. So,
yeah, worst case scenario, even if Patterson does continue to haul in the workload, he's still gonna get a lot of looks, and you're getting him off of waivers, Algier, and he does have those scoring situations, scoring positions. So definitely worth looking into for sure. I can get with that one. All right, so you got the dudes and the duds for John today. Let me know if you need to tap out. I'll pick it up from where you leave off.
All right, so Coach Shep's dudes for week 3 is Joe Burrow at the New York Jets. Burrow's due. It's just as simple as that. Over the last 2 weeks of the season, the Bengals have been very strong passing attacks. They've seen 2 very strong passing attacks. Things should get easier this week, and Joe Cool will take a big bite out of the apple. His other quarterback, Carson Wentz, balling. It's a revenge game for him. We're going back to where we started, where he was the MVP, and they just wrote him off. We're all waiting for Wentz to turn back into Wentz, not Wentz. That time will come. The season is still early, though, and his carriage has not yet turned back into a pumpkin. Love it. Through 2 weeks, Wentz is the fantasy football QB2. First running back on the board for the dudes is David Montgomery at the Houston Texans. Monty has arguably been the most slept on running back in fantasy football. He woke us all up last week with 122 yards on 15 carries. This week, he shall see a Texans defense that gave up 127 yards to both Broncos backs. And the next dude RB, Breece Hall versus the Cincinnati Bengals. This is the breakout game that we've all been waiting for. Last week, Breece Hall rushed 7 times for 50 yards and hauled in 1 reception for 10 yards. Over 2 games, he's averaging 5.6 yards per carry, which is phenomenal. Anything over 5 for running back is great. The Jets will ramp it up, his workload in this one.
Hey, Nino, real quick,
Yes,
I
sir.
jump in here. So my son got a gift here from his girlfriend, and I have to show you guys what? Oh, for his girlfriend. Oh, these are for your. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, seems very awkward. I thought these were going to be his, but it is the Schrock underwear. Oh, you can't see it because of the green background. Oh no, it's the Rock as Shrek.
Oh, that is great. That is great.
You know what? I'm gonna shut that.
I was gonna say it almost looks like assless chaps. Because he's
there. You go.
There it is.
It's the Schrock.
I love it. I love it.
All right. Anyway, now that I know it's his girlfriend's, it's very awkward now. So never mind. I'm gonna get these out of here. And
all right, let's hop back into this because
now I see why he was so excited to let me show it on air because he's never gonna let me live that one down. Oh God.
So wide receiver 1 for Coach for dudes, Deebo Samuel. I mentioned it a little bit earlier against the Denver Broncos. That was my key game. Jimmy GQ is back at the helm. Expect the 49er offense to look like it did in 2021. Deebo will be featured out of the wide and out of the backfield. The offense will run through Deebo. Jimmy G is the maestro. Wide receiver 2, dudes, Rashad Bateman at my New England Patriots. Bateman is becoming a big play machine. He's averaging 27.8 yards per reception through the first 2 games of the season. Insane. Big numbers. The Patriots will have their hands full trying to contain Lamar Jackson, and I expect Bateman to get behind the secondary a few times in this one. I backed us 100%. The Patriots have always had trouble with Lamar. Bill has trouble with mobile quarterbacks. We will see what happens. Tight end, Zach Ertz versus the Los Angeles Rams. Coach was expecting Ertz to be a big part of the Cardinals' offense with Hopkins on the sideline for the first 6 games suspended. Week 1, his production was very limited, but in week 2, Murray targeted Ertz early and often. Ertz will again see a lot of targets in week 3. For your flex, this is a Coach Shep special. This is his guy. We talked about him in camp. Noah Brown. He'll be going against our guy, Joe Clark's New York Giants. Noah Brown stepped up for the Dallas Cowboys last week, calling in 5 receptions for 91 yards and a TD. The Giants defense was focused on eliminating CeeDee Lamb, which will again open up room for Noah Brown to work. That rush to Brown connection will continue to prosper this week, especially with Dalton Schultz on the injured report. Now, Let's get to the duds. Jameis Winston versus Carolina Panthers. Winston is banged up, 4 fractures in his back, and he is referred to pre-laser eye surgery. Jameis in week 2. He lost the LASIK luck. Winston was chucking, and the opponents was too often on the receiving end of those throws. The Panthers defense hasn't played as strong as I expected, but I believe they step up against a division opponent. I agree 100%, Coach. The next quarterback that is going to be a dud, Trevor Lawrence against the LA Chargers. Lawrence has definitely taken a step forward since last season and is looking like the Jaguars' investment is going to pay off. This week, though, against a rough LA Chargers defense, which Justin already told you about, go get. I'm sitting Trevor. The Chargers are great at flying around the field and swarming to the football. They will be getting after the Jags and their offense. There will be no stop for Bosa and Derwin James. The running back, one dud, Zeke Elliott against the New York Giants. Zeke has yet to receive a full workload this season and has been sharing touches with Pollard. And their numbers are very similar. It worked for the Cowboys in week 2, and I expect the touches to be split between Elliott and Pollard again in week 3. The other gentleman on the duds list at running back is Najee Harris against Cleveland Browns. This is the game of the week for Justin. Harris seems to be a little banged up, this frank in the foot, and his performance has been really struggling. Harris is currently the RB22 on the season, and this week he'll be facing a stout Cleveland Browns defense that has been strong against the run and will be doing their best to shut down a division opponent. Defenses are not threatened by Trubisky and his arm, and things will be tough for Najee until a legitimate passing threat is present. 2 wide receivers that we have on the duds list. Terry McLaurin against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 2-0. This week, Terry will be seeing a lot of Darius Slay, fresh off 2 picks on Monday Night Football. Slay has been covering Slay has been covering opposing wide receivers like their favorite cold weather sweater. I'm sitting Terry everywhere that I can. I expect a stat line of around 3 receptions for about 35 yards. And Nino Brown's 2 cents is go get Curtis Samuel, blow up game. Wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb against the New York Giants. He is your next dud. The Giants have played well against opposing wide receiver ones, and CeeDee Lamb is next in line. Lamb struggled week 1 with Dak at the helm and then took a backseat to Noah Brown in week 2. I expect Brown to outscore Lamb again in week 3. Your tight end dud for the week is Darren Waller against the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans have given up the 3rd fewest points to opposing tight ends through the first 2 weeks of the season. Their lonely highlight of the year so far. In years past, I'd likely still start up Waller, but now that the Raiders have Devontae Adams, they do not force the ball to Waller if he is not open, or force the ball to Hunter Renfrow. Flex spot, Jeff Wilson against the Denver Broncos. Once again, the Denver Broncos defense is absolutely solid against the run. Through 2 weeks, the Broncos have only let up 131 yards on the ground. Wilson struggled to find room, and he will also be sharing touches with Deebo Samuel.
So also, I know that this guy will never be in the dudes because coach only puts guys in the dudes that that aren't already dudes. So I know he's never going to put a guy like Travis Kelce in the dudes, but I got to tell you, if you're in Frankenstank and you have Travis Kelce, he's going up against the Colts this week, who are the worst team in the league against tight ends. And if Shaquille Leonard does not play again this week, dude, you've got an automatic win in Frankenstank. It's going to be like 6,000 points. It's going to be insane.
Could be a sad game. It could be a sad game.
It could be a what?
A sad.
Yeah, it definitely could. You can find Coach's Dudes and Duds, toiletstitles.com, and along with all of his other Dudes and Duds and articles and all the other articles that the guys are pumping out. We got a lot of writers. We got a couple of pretty bomb editors that are knocking out the work. Appreciate you guys. And so next on the list is the DFS lineup. So again, I'll go ahead and read the DFS lineup. You had a long read there, so I'll go over John's DFS lineup. He finds his salaries on DraftKings.com, and he's got Joe Burrow as his QB going against the Jets. $6,600 for Joe Burrow. I think that seems like a pretty fair deal for him. The Jets defense has not been that great, especially in the secondary. Joe's got to have a bounce back game eventually. They've got to click. They've got way too many good weapons on that team. This could be that right formula that he needs. David Montgomery versus Houston. That almost seems like a no-brainer. Like there's no way that should be 5,900 against Houston for a guy that's the workhorse guy and really the biggest talent on the team. Patterson, he's got Patterson at Seattle. Cordarrelle Patterson at 5,800. Debo at Denver for 7,800. Waddle is still only 6,800. And I know that sounds like a lot for a wide receiver, especially when you compare him to a guy like Noah Brown, who he also has as his wide receiver 3 at 4,500. But in my mind, Waddle, after these first couple of weeks, is only 6,800, and Debo Samuel is 7,800. And I get that Jimmy G is back, and I think that helps Debo's value moving forward. But still, that's big potential points for 6,800. That seems like a great deal. And maybe it's because they're playing against Buffalo. It's going to be a much tougher defense, but still, like it's a high flying offense. So I don't know. I like the pick. At tight end, he's got Gerald Everett going against Jacksonville. That's one of those money saver picks right there because it's only $4,400, and you're looking for somebody that's cheap going up against a weaker opponent, and he found it in Jacksonville. Jahan Dotson is his flex versus Philadelphia. $4,600. This is PPR. DraftKings is PPR DFS lineups. So yeah, that's a great sneaky pick there. And then he went with the Cowboys defense. As much as he's going to poo on the offense, he's still believing in that defense, especially against that Giants offense. And at $3,500, that's an absolute steal. The Cowboys defense has actually still played pretty well all season, and I look for that to continue. I've got a lot of shares of them in my team defense league. So, what do you think of this lineup?
I love the lineup. Coach is smart. He knows what he's doing. You got some alphas at wide receiver. You got 2 running backs that face perfect matchups. You got a guy at quarterback ready to break out. And I'm all in on the Jahan Dotson. The kid has just blown doors off these last 2 weeks, finding ways to get open, making up for Wentz overthrows and still catching the ball. With Terry drawing top coverage, Dotson. I like Dotson or Samuel on that play. I think they both are going to boom.
Yeah, so real quick, I'm not going to read the other comments from George there up above, but he does say duds. Josh Allen. It is a funny comment, though. So, again, if you're not watching on YouTube, you want to check it out. George is a pretty funny guy. I don't care what his wife says about him. And then after that, Uncle Steve, the infamous Uncle Steve, has a trade question. He says a spinoff of what Justin and I talked about earlier. I give up Tua and Brandon Cooks, and I get Trevor Lawrence and Bateman. He already has Lamar, and it's a 1-quarterback league. It's so in a 1-quarterback league, he already has Lamar, so he would be giving up Tua and Cooks and getting back Trevor Lawrence and Bateman when he already has Lamar to have the Bateman stack there. So what do you
need to know what the other wide receivers are on his team.
I can tell you real quick.
Okay. And he only has those 2 quarterbacks like this. So I would be fine with not getting
quarterback league.
Right, but I'd be fine with not getting Trevor Lawrence back. Maybe getting a more talented running back or a stud running back and going off and getting maybe like Baker Mayfield or something. Like there's got to be QBs on the waiver wire if it's only a 1 QB league.
There are a couple. His other wide receivers, he has T. Higgins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Pittman, Curtis Samuel, Brandon Cooks, and Devin Duvernay.
All right. What does he have for running backs?
I'll start at the bottom and work my way up. Kenyon Drake, Jalen Warren, Nyheim Hines, James Conner, A.J. Dillon, and Najee Harris.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely not go for Lawrence. I'd take Bateman, and I would try to get a stud RB because Harris, the injury could linger, and now you're just looking at hero RB with A.J. Dillon, and I don't know.
Can you get a stud RB for a quarterback in a 1-quarterback league?
Who's the hottest QB right now? Why wouldn't you cash when he's hot, right? Strike when the kettle's hot, right?
I mean, try it for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, two and Brandon Cooks could get you somebody in the top 10, right? That's a package, dude. You got to.
That's what we were talking about before the show. As I mentioned it to him, I was like, dude, like, because like I don't pay for quarterbacks in one quarterback leagues. I just won't do it. So like,
what if you had Dak or Trey Lance?
Then I would rather go to the waiver wire and start Baker Mayfield than to give up a top quarterback or a top running back for a quarterback in a one quarterback league, because I can just play the matchups with the waiver wire. Like, but that's me. Like, I'm not everybody's like that.
But it's a solid point. It's a solid point because I said the same thing. Why would I get Lawrence back if I only need a quarterback for 1 week?
Right. So what I told him was, you're going to feel like you should have gotten more for Tua because he's worth that on the field, like fantasy points wise, he's worth more. But I just don't know that you can get more.
Right.
But
also, if you were going to do it, you got to do it now, right now.
Right. I definitely think you need to try, Steve. I just don't know if it's going to happen. All right. Well, we need to get moving because we've got another show coming on in like 1 minute. So, all right. So slow your roll. First, did we get rid of the ones from last week? All right. So my slow your roll is pretty much all about the Ravens defense. I finally slowed my roll on them. I was huge on them to start the season. I thought they were going to be something. They've been nothing but disappointment. We've talked about them at nauseum, but I will say that again, thanks to Nino's updates, they did bring in veterans Jason Pierre-Paul and Blake Martinez for workouts today. I'm still not afraid to start any wide receivers or pretty much anybody against that defense at this point until they prove otherwise. They look absolutely pitiful. Coach's slow your roll was that or slow your roll or all in is the segment. He's all in on the Miami Dolphins pass attack. Don't let him fool you. He's been all in on them all season or all off season. More so or less so with Tyreek Hill and more so with why am I drawing a blank? Waddle. He's been more on Waddle than Hill, but he has been in on that passing attack all off season. Now this time next week. So this is a segment where we talk about what we think people are going to be talking about next week. So again, this is another one where Nino kind of did not know that going into it, but so we're trying to project and predict what people are going to say after this week's games are played. So last week I predicted, and I have on there that this was last week's. Last week I predicted that this was going to be enough of the Trey Lance experiment because I wasn't high on him. And then for the comment for this week, I put oops because I feel bad. Like I didn't want it to happen this way. Like I honestly felt that Jimmy Garoppolo was the better quarterback, and eventually they were gonna finally realize that and pull the plug on Trey Lance. But I thought it was going to be because of his performance on the field. Definitely don't want to see a guy go down to injury of any kind, much less something that puts him out for the season like that. This isn't how I wanted Jimmy G to get his job back, and I'm not even going to try to act like this was a win. But I did call it last week, and we like to talk about our predictions from last week, so I threw it on here. But I'm not calling this one a win. Last week I said that people were going to say, there's the Carson Wentz that we know. And then in my comments I said, you can't win them all. They actually did surprise me this week. They played pretty well this week, and I got to hand it to them. And last week it was against Detroit. And again, it's been a couple of, skeptic or questionable defenses. So I still think that Wentz is going to come down to earth, but he proved me wrong this week. So I'm willing to take that one on the chin. Then last week I said that I thought that the Eagles were supposed to be good, and they played the Lions and the Vikings. And when they played the Lions in week 1, I kind of felt like the Lions gave them a run for their money. And before week 1, I said that the Lions were going to give them a run for their money. So I got that part right. But then I thought really that the Vikings were going to come in and dog walk them last night. And again, I was proven wrong. And you made sure, because you didn't understand the segment, you made sure to put these comments down in there to totally rip on me. You realized you thought I was saying they played bad last week. So go ahead and read off your comments.
All right. So I read it, and I'm like, another guy ripping on my boy Hurts. So I was like, wait, they're not good? I'm like, they had 267 rushing yards last week, 4 touchdowns. Hurts was 18 to 32 for 243. He made reads. His first drive was 90 yards and a rushing touchdown. AJ Brown was everywhere, and they did it again against a good Vikings defense. He was 6 for 6, should have been 7 for 7, but Goddard dropped the pass that he put where only a good quarterback can put it. So I don't want to hear about he can't throw. He's got to step up passing the ball. The last 3 games, the first 2 games of this season, he has been throwing the ball. The first game, that first quarter, he had to knock the rust off. He looked terrible, but then he righted that ship.
Now, I will say, though, if you go back and listen to the last 2 episodes, like I'm not knocking Hurts at all. I'm not knocking a lot of the players. I feel like they have a lot of good talent. I just didn't really feel like it was the type of team setup that could really mold and gel and become what everybody was expecting them to be this year. And after week 2, I feel like there's a good chance I was wrong. And I'm not upset about that. They do have good talent. They deserve to be good finally, right? Like they're making moves. They're trying to make moves to win now. And they're actually starting to win now. So I kind of feel good for them. So please don't take that as Eagles hate or even Hurts hate, because especially for fantasy reasons, I love Jalen Hurts.
I just want to see the kid actually like not get knocked. Like, all right, like Tua and him are doing the same thing. Like they had all the pressure in the world on them this year, and they're literally saying, "Here, hold my beer. I'm gonna go show you what I got." But it's just crazy with like. What's the GM there? Howie Douglas, I think his name is in Philly. Howie something, I believe his name is. What sold me on Jalen Hurts was they had all the capital in the world this year in the draft, right? They went out and what did they do? They went out and got stud draft picks, stud defensive linemen, linebackers. They went and traded for Chauncey Gardner as a cornerback. They signed James Bradbury. But they bolstered the defense because I guess they believe in Hurts, right? Because they could have went out and traded and got Jimmy and got everybody else before Baker, whoever else, but they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear the Gardner Minshew talk. He's a backup for a reason. I'm tired of hearing about it. It's Jalen Hurts' team.
Yeah.
And if they can pull it off and bring them to the playoffs again and get a W, they got a 23 first-round draft pick that's only going to make that offense stellar.
You know what? I'm really glad that you misunderstood that segment, because I'm glad that we were able to give you this soapbox. My last prediction from last week, I'm glad I finally got one right. I said that that TJ Watt must just be that good, because that Steelers defense it's looked really bad without him, and I was right. With TJ Watt, week 1 against Cincinnati, the Steelers had a defensive touchdown, a fumble recovery, 4 interceptions, 7 sacks, and a block. And then against New England in week 2, without Watt, they had 1 interception. That's it. No other defensive stats to speak of besides tackles across the board. I do think that TJ Watt makes that big of a difference in that defense. And maybe you're right, with all the veterans and all the leadership they have there, they'll make it happen somehow. But I just don't see it happening. I think he's that big of a piece. Coach's predictions from last season, from last week going into it, he was stating that people are going to look back and say Aaron Rodgers still owns the Bears, which was right, and that the Frankenstank is going to be a little bit smoother. That one very clearly was very true, because week 1 Frankenstank, I was ready to run my head through a wall. But after week 2, things have calmed down. People are starting to get the rules. People are starting to understand where to go check the rules out now that we're 2 weeks into the season. But hey, it is what it is. So now this week tonight, my prediction of what people are going to be saying next week after the games are played is that by this time next week, people will already be bringing up names of coaches that are on the hot seat. We see it every year, even after just 3 weeks. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. But that being said, I got one. Frank Reich for the Indianapolis Colts should be on the hot seat. Only 10 touches for one of the league's premier running backs with 2 wide receivers. Your top 2 wide receivers on the shelf. Are you freaking kidding me? He had 5 touches in the whole first half. And you want to say, well, it's because they went down early. It was only 2 touchdowns, right? And it was against a much weaker opponent. There's no reason that, and yes, I said it, a much weaker opponent. We lost 20-0 to a much weaker opponent. We were the better team, and we still got our asses handed to us because you gave 5 touches in the first half to Jonathan Taylor. and then 5 touches in the second half to try to come back. He tried to trust Matt Ryan with backup wide receivers. What are we doing, Frank Reich? It's time. It's time. I'm over it. We say run the football, run the football, run the football. You're wasting one of the best talents in the NFL, and I'm over it. And I did all that mostly as a big joke to say that there's only going to be one guy. And then, Nino, you followed right up along with the joke, and you threw out Matt Rule. You want to talk about Matt Rule a little bit?
All right. So I thought Matt Rule had the hottest seat in football before they traded for Baker. They went and got Baker, who was supposed to be like this huge upgrade. I still believe in Baker. His numbers have been kind of meh. Last week there was 7 drops. That changes a lot of things. The chemistry obviously isn't there. The trade happened late. If the trade was at the beginning of the offseason, I think they'd be gelling fine right off rip. Matt Rule just needs to get his game plan right. I like the fact that they're like slowing McCaffrey into it, not overpowering him, not giving him 20 touches a game, not making him block.
Yeah.
They gotta do something, switch it up. But real quick, you're a Colts fan, right?
Yeah.
Why is this new to you? What happened last year? He got 17 carries in 2 weeks and then went off to win a title.
Yeah, I get it. And I was upset. I was mad all year last year too. Because they kept trying to make Carson Wentz a thing when he's not a thing, And I thought that it was going to be an upgrade to go to Matt Ryan. And, Matt Ryan didn't play horrible in week 1 when he had his wide receivers.
Wait a minute. Timeout. Upgrade?
Yes, I hate Carson Wentz.
Wait,
yes.
you could just because you personally hate somebody.
Okay. Because I watched every single game, and for the Colts games, I usually watch them twice. And you have no idea how many times he missed the wide open wide receiver by 5 yards. Like, he is that bad. He
was borderline QB1 up into the last 3 weeks of fantasy football.
In fantasy football, yes. But he is so
bad. That's why he was
winning football games. He cannot win football games.
He stinks at fumbling. He's terrible with fumbling. I don't understand what happened to him. But bro, he's finding the guys in Washington. What's the difference? What did you expect them to do with no receivers? They stacked 8 in the box, dude. They literally said, we're going to take your mediocre line and we're going to shove it down your throat.
Are you talking about when he was with the Colts?
I'm talking about this week. Like, what did you expect them to do with no wide receivers? The defense
run the football.
They stacked 8 in the box.
Run the football.
Football. So keep running when it's 3rd and 17. Keep running when it's 2nd and 12.
Yes.
And you would have complained at halftime that they just ran the football and they have no points.
They would not know. I would not complain because, and here's the reason why. The reason the pass wasn't working is because you gave up on the run. You run for the first quarter and a half, and then you pop them with that play action. You're already down 14-0 at halftime.
How do you run? How do you run down 14-0? No, the team knows what you're going to do.
14-0. It's only 14 points. It's a 2-score game.
You really thought Matt Ryan was an upgrade at like 38 years old?
I did. Yes, I sure did. But that's just because of how down I was on Carson Wentz.
All right.
I'm still down on Carson Wentz. Don't get me wrong. I still think he's coming back down to earth when they start playing decent defenses. But at the same time, that schedule's looking better and better as the season's going. Yeah.
So real quick,
not just the division, the other games too. The other teams too are down on their schedule.
I don't see Matt Rule going to Nebraska. He was a great college coach. I see Bill O'Brien. That's one of the wish lists. I see Bill O'Brien going there, which kind of makes a little bit of sense on why he never went to the Patriots this year. Maybe he didn't want to be an offensive coordinator. He knew that down the pipeline there was going to be a huge head coaching job available. But it's Lupo, I think his name is. Arizona, not Arizona State. I forget, Kansas coach. I think he's going to be a huge target. Jared's going to tell you Urban Meyer, but I don't think anybody takes a chance on him. You'd be crazy to.
All right, hey, we need to wrap this up, man. We got another show going on here after this one, but the coach says that by this time next week we're going to be saying, hey, we're finally starting to sort out who is who and what is what in the NFL for the 2022 season. I think that one's pretty accurate. After week 3, you really start to have a really good idea. Teams that played easier defenses in the first couple weeks usually have a tough opponent somewhere in there. So you have a better idea of what's going on. Nino, you have a this time next week. And I see that you also did not understand this segment either.
What did I write? Because I just switched it out. What did I do wrong?
You said, how about Joe Flacco comeback win versus Cleveland, 4 touchdowns, 307 yards. That was last week.
But you want to know why? I'll tell you why. Because I tried to get a jump start on my stuff this week because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shows to do. And all the notes were still old. So I just went on what was there. And I'm like, oh, how about Joey Flacco? Well, maybe this time next week we'll be saying, elite Joe Flacco is gone.
But I helped you out, man. I put in there, he plays the Bengals in week 3. So what we're going to say is that what you really meant to say is, how about that Joe Flacco comeback against the Bengals in week 3? He had 4 touchdowns and 307 yards. Because if it happens again, like you're dead on now. Now you're just a genius.
What happens if Garrett Wilson has a Jamar Chase game? He had 2 last week. He's getting comfortable with Joe. Yeah. And those comments that he made saying that he makes the ball a lot easier to catch.
So what you're saying is this time next week, we're going to be saying that Garrett Wilson is every bit as good as Jamar Chase.
No, we're going to be saying that Garrett Wilson is every bit as good as what everybody's saying about Drake London.
Ooh, there you go. I like it. All right, we'll put that one in the books. And speaking of putting it in the books, I see a lot of comments in here, guys. Unfortunately, we're over time. I'm not going to go through all these comments, but all right, some of them are pretty funny. If you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing out in the comment section. Whenever Coach isn't here, I lose all control of the show. I go over 15 minutes. I let the chat get out of hand. I let Nino just say whatever he wants to say, and we get totally off track. Jared, I apologize to you. Part of this was Jared's fault, so I'm not going to apologize to you. Part of it was Nino's fault, so I'm not going to apologize to you, Nino. But Jared, I'm sorry, buddy. I hope you guys have a great show. But thank everybody for tuning in. Appreciate the views tonight. Appreciate the interaction. We even appreciate you, Uncle Steve. Have a good night, y'all.